Hello, I'm Daniel. I got this issue of the NTEU bulletin yesterday, and it inspired me to make this video about the Hatch Act. What is the Hatch Act? So we have meetings about this thing every year, I think, where they talk to us about it, and it's kind of boring to talk about and think about. It's kind of hard to understand as well. So I'm just gonna talk about that today. I'm gonna go over what's in this bulletin. And if you got this in the mail, it says July 2020 on it, but I got it yesterday. If you got this in the mail, I encourage you to read it. This is probably my favorite bulletin I've gotten because I'm interested in all the material. So the Hatch Act was put in place to sort of make sure that government employees aren't using their power as government employees to influence elections. And it just applies to us because we're government employees, even though, power, I don't have a lot of power. But it still applies to us. So we do have to think about that at times. And the modern world has made the Hatch Act sort of something we have to think about in a more complicated way because of the existence of social media. Of course, we have Facebooks and Twitters and Instagrams, and that means we have to be careful, not because we can't share our opinions, we can, but rather because it sure seems like we're plugged in all the time for many of us. Not for everyone. I try to take some time off it when I'm able to, but this is what we're going to talk about. So this is the first question I'm going to address, and that is, can I express partisan political opinions on social media? So the question is, can I say, vote for this person, vote against this person? Those are partisan political ideas, partisan political opinions. And I want to take a moment to say there are also nonpartisan political opinions. So a partisan political opinion is if you say, vote for Biden. That's a partisan political opinion. A nonpartisan political opinion is, I'm against the death penalty, or I support Black Lives Matter, or I'm pro-life, or I'm pro-choice. Those are non-partisan political opinions. And so those are viewed a little bit differently than saying, you should vote for this person. Okay, that's not the same thing. But, in general, all federal employees may use social media and comply with the Hatch Act if they remember these 3 rules. Rule number 1, don't engage in political activity while on duty, using government equipment, or in the federal workplace. So, for example, if I'm donating to a political campaign, I'm not going to use my work email as the email, so I start getting political emails in my work inbox all the time, right? That's a bad idea. But also, what do I need to not do? I need to not do anything political while I'm at work. So, if I'm on my break, I want to not pull out my phone and post on Facebook about how people should vote. Or, an easier thing to fall into is when you see somebody say something that you really think is wrong on Facebook, because of course we're allowed to scroll Facebook on our breaks and lunch, right? If you see someone say something that you think is wrong, resist that urge to say something to them. And that's, in general, I think often that's good advice in life, but especially when you're at work, because if you get in a political argument while you're at work, that is, under the Hatch Act, not a good idea. That could be dangerous. So, and that could easily happen if you're looking at Facebook on your break and somebody says something that you really disagree with. You could fall into an argument. And we don't want to get in a political argument when we're at work. And there's a new dimension to this right now because many of our workforce is teleworking, and it can sort of be blurry between when you're at work and when you're at home, when you're working at home. And we need to pretend, for these purposes, we need to pretend we're at work in the building during our tour of duty, as well as we can. Pretend we're at work in the building during our tour of duty and behave as though we are. Okay, so that was number 1. Don't do anything when you're on duty. Okay? Number 2 is you may not solicit, accept, or receive a political contribution for a political party, candidate in a partisan race, or partisan political group. So, I have noticed when I donate to a political campaign, at the end of the donation process, it says, share this on Facebook so all your friends know. Don't do that. Don't do that, because that could be considered soliciting for political contributions. If I donate to a campaign and then it creates a Facebook post for me and it says, I donated and you should too. I didn't write that, but that still could be construed as soliciting for a donation. And that's not allowed. And then number 3, you may not use your official authority or influence to affect the outcome of an election. So, what does that mean? That means what you will not do is go on Facebook and say, I am a federal worker and that is why I am voting this way. It's sort of shady a little bit, but that's an area where we could get into trouble. So, and a lot of people say you shouldn't list IRS as your job on Facebook or Twitter. You shouldn't list IRS as your job anywhere. A lot of people do say that, and I don't. I list NTEU as my job, even though I'm an IRS employee. But that's an area where better safe than sorry. So that's why a lot of people are very cautious in that area. But you are allowed to list yourself as an IRS employee on Facebook. But what you're not allowed to do is act like you have more power in the election and tell people, if you don't want the IRS to come after you, vote this way because I'm an IRS employee. I know what'll happen, right? And I don't imagine people doing that, but that's something to have in your mind just in case. And another question on here. Can I engage in political activities while teleworking? I went over that already, right? Pretend you're in the building. Pretend you're in the building on your tour of duty. Pretend you're in the building while you're on your tour of duty. Let's see what else is in here. Can I protest? And the answer is yes. Every American has the right to protest. However, don't wear your work badge. Don't wear, if you have a work uniform. We don't really have uniforms here. But don't wear your work badge and display it while you're protesting. Try not to do that. Try not to do that. And so here's another one. Can I donate to a candidate's political campaign? You may. You may donate. You may contribute money to political campaigns, parties, or groups. You may attend and be active at political rallies or meetings. You may volunteer to work on a partisan political campaign. You may express opinions about candidates and issues, including on social media. So again, not at work. So feel free to, after you go home, say what you think about what political candidate you like or don't like. Feel free to do that. You are free to do that. And you are free to donate money to political campaigns anytime you want. And even go to political rallies and meetings. What we can't do is run for things. Run for partisan things. So That's something we can't do, but beyond that, so like nonpartisan things, actually we could run for office in nonpartisan things. So if like the county has a sheriff that's elected and it's not partisan, it's not a partisan election of Democrats versus Republicans, then you could run for that if you wanted to. Can I contact my members of Congress? Yes, and in fact, NTEU encourages you to do that. Yes, you can totally contact your members of Congress, and you can tell them you're an IRS employee, and you can tell them anything you want, really. What you can't do, though, is do that at work, of course. Can I send a letter to the editor of a media outlet? So there are some issues that we care a lot about, like, of course, last time and the government shutdown. That was 2 years ago now, but that's something we care about a lot. But things that are still going on, like proper funding for federal agencies and better protections during pandemics, right? We're thinking about that right now. You can write a letter to a newspaper about it. That's allowed. And when in public expressing an opinion, just don't wear your IRS badge. So you can even go on the news and talk about how federal employees are treated if you want to. As some of our members did during the shutdown 2 years ago. So that's it. So people hear about the Hatch Act and they think it's like incredibly restrictive and we can't talk about politics and we can't talk about what candidates we like. And that's not true, but don't do it at work is really important. I think we're so plugged in at social media now that we are scrolling all the time, and that can get us into trouble. And I don't know how somebody gets caught soliciting for political donations on social media while they're at work. I don't know how somebody gets caught doing that, but I do know better safe than sorry, and we need to protect ourselves in the areas where we can. So that's what I wanted to say about the Hatch Act. Some people think it's more restrictive than it is, and some people think it's less restrictive than it is. So we need to just be aware of that. So please, if you receive this bulletin in the mail and you didn't throw it away, please read it. July NTEU bulletin. It is really good information, really useful. So that's it for today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Have a good day.